Good evening, and welcome to the Back Room, where we talk about politics around the country, around the world, and right here in New York City. I'm your host, Lisa Schiffren. I'm a Republican speechwriter. And
David Eisenbach, presidential historian.
And tonight we have Stephanie Liggio, who ran for office last year here in the Bronx and is a young conservative. So, the biggest story of the week this week is what's happening with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. A Democratic senator went down to El Salvador to meet with him, which the president of that country allowed. Now 4 copycat congresspeople are in El Salvador hoping to meet with him. It's a cheap stunt. They're getting a little coverage at home, where they're trying to argue that the story is about due process and not about the Democrats' affection for an illegal alien MS-13 gang member who was deported back to his home country. I think this is very bad politics for the Democrats, making it clear that you care more about the niceties of how an illegal alien criminal was deported than the safety of the country from illegal gang members won't win votes. Kilmar, who is also a wife beater, is not coming back.
He's not coming back. Is he coming back?
Probably not. Doesn't look like it. No. Yeah. What were you thinking?
I'm thinking his wife, in defense of him, is posting pictures and hiding with emojis his MS-13 tattoos that are on his finger. And that's telling in and of itself. She knows she has to hide the fact that he was an MS-13. And I think the argument from the Democrat Party is that, well, the MS-13 gang does no longer exist in El Salvador. It's been broken apart by the president. So he really isn't a gang member, so he shouldn't have been deported.
No, I think their argument is that he was never, that he's just a Maryland dad, that he has 3 kids, 2 of whom are not his, but that he's just a guy who lives in Maryland and has a job and is an illegal immigrant, but he's been here 10 years, so that makes him legit somehow.
Well, my understanding is that the proof of him being in the gang was kind of weak, right? It was a Chicago Bulls hat, and he had a sweatshirt with the pictures of the presidents with money on their mouths, like his
2 different judges concluded that he was a gang member. So I don't know what they saw and what they didn't see. But 2 different judges who you can't assume are pro-Republican.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying. But when I read it, it seems like pretty flimsy evidence as proof that he's a gang member.
Well, there was also the stop that was made in Tennessee when he was in the middle of transporting 8 Salvadorans across the country from Texas to Maryland with no luggage, no papers, no driver's license, no nothing. So a human trafficking, that seems like a reasonable choice for a gang member.
Yeah. Well, this is where it definitely, at this point, I don't know if it's ever going to get back to the American courts at this point, right?
I'm not sure, because it seems that Judge Boasberg wants to make a larger issue out of this. And I think to set a little precedent as far as the other illegal immigrants that are here that have deportation orders, there's about 1 million of them that have to be deported. So what's going to happen now? That's all backlogged. Do we have to do trials for 1 million illegal immigrants who have
the Supreme Court
orders?
kind of hinted at that this week, that there needs to be more due process, that there needs to be more trials.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, this is where it gets very, very tricky because...
Well, but it wasn't so tricky when Obama deported millions of people. He just deported them. They didn't do this to him.
Yeah, he did.
Same thing for Biden. Biden deported more people than Trump has been allowed to deport.
Yes, he did. This has become very much a political issue, but of course, it's immigration and it's Donald Trump. So of course,
I think it's Donald Trump. I don't even think it's immigration. I think nobody's ever raised these objections before. It's pure politics.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's a constitutional issue also on this, because when does an illegal immigrant start getting the what's afforded to us, the citizen? So what's the point of being
He has to
a
apply for
citizen?
asylum. He has to actually go through legal, legal processes.
So that's my question. Why does the Constitution apply to anyone who's on our shores when I'm in Italy or if I'm in France and if I commit a crime? No go.
Right.
You're subject to. I mean, there was that young woman in Italy that was accused of an American
Murder.
citizen was accused of murder in her dorm, and she was held and had a trial. Thank goodness for the overturning of that decision. But we are subject to the law, and if you break the law, you have to,
It's funny because many of Americans assume that it works abroad the same way it works in the United States,
Really
and when
doesn't
they
work
go
anywhere
abroad,
like that.
so you got to be
No.
more careful when you're outside of the United States.
Right.
But it's certainly true that illegal aliens are not automatically guaranteed due process in the same sense that an American is.
Definitely, that's true. That's true. However, we do have a system.
No, but
of
you're
laws.
admitting that, whereas the average Democratic member of Congress will not admit that.
Yeah, well, it's easy to be honest when you're not a politician and you don't have to answer to rabid anti-Trump voters
And donors.
and donors.
Don't forget the donors.
Yeah, never.
So this afternoon, the Department of Health and Human Services announced that RFK Jr. is banning 8 different synthetic food dyes. So RFK Jr. gave a speech talking about this, where he went through the details of why this is all so important. That no country besides us allows these synthetic dyes in their food supply, and there's so much chronic disease among America's young people. 60% of young people have some kind of chronic disease, whether it's autism or ADHD or obesity or diabetes. It's just totally out of control. That's not all food dyes. That's other things too. But
it
this is
doesn't
a start.
help.
No, this is a start. It doesn't
It
help.
doesn't help having these ingredients that are banned all around the world, but because our agencies are bought and sold through regulatory capture, right? We allow and we in fact push these killer foods on our kids, and it's unconscionable because not only does it affect their health now, but long-term effects, right? That costs them as individuals and it costs us as a society.
Well, it certainly contributes to the obesity epidemic.
Definitely, right? And that's a lifelong problem that they have to live with.
And it leads to other issues as well. The obesity it'll lead to osteoporosis and other issues for people.
Diabetes, I mean, the list goes
Heart
on. Heart
disease.
disease.
Yes.
But also the idea that you have to that you can take sugar-laden food like breakfast cereal and you have to make it redder or bluer.
It looks funner.
Only
Right.
in America.
It's ridiculous. Blueberries are a good enough dye.
It has to match the crayon,
Right.
right?
Yum.
I can't imagine why food companies like General Mills or Nestle's, why they would object at this point to getting out of using these things.
Yeah,
You would think that it would be entirely to their benefit to get this stuff off the table.
You would think. You would think. But apparently they haven't made that calculation in the bottom line. And thank God we actually have somebody like RFK Jr. who's willing to stand up and say enough's enough.
Right.
And it's not political. This is something purely for the health of our children and our seniors because we spend the most money the last 20 years of our life on healthcare, and everyone's crying now over, we're going to reduce Medicare and Medicaid. But that's the long shot because that's going to align with canceling all of these bad foods from our diet. So in the long run, we'll all be healthier by then, and we won't need to cash in on our insurance.
This is one of those great things where actually doing the right thing
Right.
is good for the bottom line, right, as well as the waistline.
Well,
that
RFK
was
Jr. this week also announced, or maybe it was last week, he announced that they would be coming up with an answer to what is causing the autism epidemic. And that, when he talks about how when he was a kid, the autism rate was 1 in 10,000, and now it's 1 in 34. Yeah. That is shocking and so upsetting.
So disturbing when you just friends my age with their kids, you just see these numbers and the numbers of autistic kids on the spectrum. it just wasn't the case
Right.
when we were kids.
And it's not like this is all just a little bit of autism, like you're Elon Musk and you're not so good with social
Right.
mannerisms.
And also, Donald Trump said today that he wants to find a way to inspire people to have more children. So maybe a limited risk of autism will increase the desire for people to have more children and to have children. You have a lot of millennials just having a dog or having that family pet instead of having babies. So maybe now they still have time. So maybe they'll reconsider and have some babies. Greatest gift ever.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
It's clear that we have a birth dearth,
Yes.
the natalism problem around the world.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how you. I think Democrats wanted to solve that problem by bringing in illegal aliens, and that hasn't quite worked out.
No, Chuck Schumer said that, right?
I mean, no, that was very clearly an answer to the problem. We'll bring in immigrants, but I think we have to actually persuade our own people to get married and have children.
I agree. Nothing wrong with that. Babies are a gift.
Babies are a gift. That is one thing we can all agree on for sure.
The Supreme Court today was having a showdown over parents' ability to shield their children from gender ideology education, from indoctrination. In the case of Mahmoud versus Taylor, parents' groups are asking to let us opt out of indoctrination. Schools are calling parents the equivalent of white supremacists because they don't want to, the parents don't want their kids to have to listen to these gender ideology books about, young gay love or being transgender, not having only the vaguest sense that the sex you were born is the sex you're going to be for the rest of your life. So these books seem to indoctrinate children. The state of Maryland is determined to inflict this on all of these kids, and the Supreme Court is hearing this case today, and probably tomorrow, and we'll see how they come down. But they don't seem even Elena Kagan was just outraged that they weren't allowing parents to withdraw their kids from these classes.
Ultimately, the parents should decide, but this is a caution to parents around the country. Let's get more involved with your PTA meetings and the curriculum that's being developed for your children so you know that when you're enrolling them in school, what they're going to be learning in school. They're there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That's a lot of time out of the house. And that's a lot of time with someone else as an adult in the room with your child. So you should really, I think parents need to be more involved.
Yeah.
Instead of just saying, oh, it's public school, it's fine, it's what you have to learn.
Yeah,
Can't do that.
I think you're right. However, I would also say, when you're working 8-9 hours a day, both parents, right? It's hard to be involved, and I could see how you're not involved, you're not aware, and then you find out, wait a minute, my kid's reading what? And it's not just inclusivity that's apparently in these books. Some of them are pretty explicit.
Yes, some of them are very explicit.
I can see as a parent that this is not something that I'm good with, and I wonder why the school, which should be teaching reading, is teaching
writing, math,
sex.
history.
This is,
Yes.
Well, no, speaking of that, I mean, all of these schools are failing at having children read at grade level or do math at grade level. And instead, they're making an issue of this gender indoctrination where they could be actually doing something useful and teaching them math and reading. I don't know. I think a lot of these parents don't have the resources to homeschool, and don't have the resources to send their kids to private school. So they're kind of stuck with public school, and it's a legal requirement. You have to send your kid. So it needs to actually be flexible for the parents, I think.
Yeah, or we could get back to just teaching basics.
Yeah,
I think that's kind of I think that's honestly the way.
Really easy.
And just have a warm, welcoming environment for all kids, right? And I think that is the same way of approaching it.
I would expect that the teachers would appreciate to getting back to the basics as well.
I don't think so. I think a lot of these teachers are gung-ho ideologues. I think that's
Not
who,
all
that's
of
who,
them.
be, that's who
Not all
becomes
of
a
them.
teacher now. So
Right.
we're going to go to a break now, and when we get back, more politics, city politics.
City politics.
Welcome back to the back room. We're going to turn to New York City politics now. The big story of the week in New York is that in the mayoral race, which Andrew Cuomo is leading in by a long shot, he's got 45% of the vote. Somebody named Zohran Mamdani has become a serious contender. He's at 22% of the vote. He's wiped away all of the traditional candidates who, with their citywide reputations, and he is a socialist, a democratic socialist. He's a Queens assemblyman, and is he catching up? That's the question. Is he a real threat? Is he somebody we have to worry about?
2 months to go, he absolutely is. Don't forget, we have ranked choice voting in New York City and low voter turnout. So you put that recipe together with a young man who's doing well with an age group, the millennials and Gen Z, they could turn out to vote for him.
Well, the question is, can he expand outside of his 22%, right? And you know, if this poll ran the numbers in terms of how it rolls out, ranked choice wise, I think Cuomo wins by 65%. So look, it's Cuomo's race to lose. I think he likes the fact that it's kind of like not even happening, right? This mayor's race is about as boring and as dead as I've ever seen a mayor's race, even this close. I don't see much of a threat to Cuomo from inside the party. And then when you look at, you know, Brad Lander polling at 8%, Scott Stringer at 3%, Zellnor, he's at like a 2%. I'm shocked that no one has emerged except for this one candidate.
Well, one thing about this candidate is he's young, he's pretty vigorous, he's like AOC, and he's got the same backing that she's got, the same Democratic Socialist backing. And as you say, they are hard workers.
They're hard workers. They're mobilized. They can raise money. But is that going to have the breakthrough into, you know, non-hipster Brooklyn? Is it going to break through out of Long Island City and Queens and into the Upper West Side? I don't think so. I think Cuomo just wins this one without a problem. In fact, I think he likes the idea that he's got this candidate who's, you know, doesn't have much of a citywide reputation, who's taking votes away from the anti-Cuomo wing of the Democratic primary.
We'll see. We have 2 months.
Stephanie, what happened this week with James Comer and Andrew Cuomo?
So Andrew Cuomo last October was in front of the select committee going over all of what happened with the coronavirus in New York State.
When he killed 15,000 people.
He signed a directive to allow sick individuals to return to nursing homes or to go into nursing homes. He signed that directive. And when asked if he had signed it, he said no. And and everyone on the committee said, but we have it right here. You signed it. This is your signature. And he refused to acknowledge that he signed it and that these sick people were in nursing homes because of his directive. So James Comer had asked last year for the DOJ, but it was Merrick Garland. He was not going to take that any further. So now he wrote the letter to the DOJ, hoping that Pam Bondi will take this up and take it for what it's worth. It's a perjury charge. And I don't know, Senator Menendez, for getting gold bars and whatnot, other bribes, got 11 years in prison. I don't know, maybe he just gets a slap on the wrist for it. I don't know.
I think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I'm just tired of this lawfare. It's like using the Justice Department to go after political enemies because they're political enemies, not because they actually did anything that all these other politicians don't do all the time.
Well, perjury is a real thing.
Yeah, but it's just the only reason why they're going after him is because he's running for mayor.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
Please, this is what Donald Trump was complaining about throughout the election. Going after them for crimes that would have been completely ignored had Cuomo just been, chilling out in Westchester right now. This rubs me the wrong way when these politicians start using the Justice Department and the legal system to go after political enemies. It's wrong. It's not good for democracy.
Well, I mean, the truth is, what Comer's done has no standing unless the Department of Justice actually backs it up with an indictment.
I fear that will happen, right? It's you can't complain about the use of the Justice Department for political retribution when the Democrats do it, and then when you're in power, you do it to the Democrats. This is banana Republicville.
Or you can look at it a different way. Merrick Garland perhaps should have assigned an attorney to look at it and close the case and say there's nothing there. We're going to close this case, send a letter back to the select committee and say, we investigated this, not a big deal.
No, you
We're gonna
can't
let
do
it
that
go.
here because it's very clear that Cuomo is guilty.
I mean, he is on tape saying, no, that I didn't sign that directive, and the directive clearly has his signature. So yeah, he's in a little bit of a pickle. How he gets out of it, do they do anything about it? I don't know. I don't know.
You know, getting attacked by Republicans in a Democratic city kind of helps. Honestly, it helps.
I don't know that we're a Democratic city.
We are very much a Democratic city. It's New York City. Look at the.
I don't know.
We're definitely a Democratic city.
There's a shift. There's definitely a shift.
Not that much of a shift.
There's a shift. There's definitely a shift. And there's a lot of issues that the Democrat Party is not tending to for the citizens.
Well, that's been true for a very long
And
time.
you have candidates this year that will address those issues.
Well, I would say as a lifelong Republican, there are problems that the Republican Party is not addressing. The Republican Party is a little bit too dead for my taste. I feel like
Yes, they should be bolder.
they should be bolder and they should be more organized.
From your experience in organizing in the Bronx, what should the Republicans in New York City be running on?
Running on, we have to run on the fact that our education system here is broken. We don't meet any of the national standards, and whether it's housing is an issue also. So education, housing, I would have said last year food prices. The issue ultimately is energy. And what has been passed at the State House for energy is allowing Con Edison and other providers to charge additional money on the delivery fee because there's restitution for all of the pollution of all of the years in supplying energy to the homes. It's a little bit confounded, and I don't understand how they passed it, but it's passed. So everyone talks about their Con Ed bill being so crazy. This is the reason. So we need to roll that back in some way, but we also need to roll back congestion pricing. We need to roll back all of these cameras all over the city that are giving you a speed ticket if you go 26 miles an hour. Just
I got one of those.
I get many of
much was
those. $50 every time. It's not a fun ticket to pay. But you pay it because you don't want it on your record and you don't want it doubles, over time. So you don't want to pay that. But there's a lot of issues that New Yorkers, and I knocked on doors and I said, are you happy with your Con Ed bill? And silence, absolute silence, because there's no counter argument to that. No one's happy with it. It's been doubled. It's going to double again if we don't do anything to draw it back.
That seems like an easy issue to jump on. What's the reluctance of the Republicans? I can kind of see how the Democrats would be reluctant.
I think, well, the Democrats all fall in line. They'll all fall behind an AOC or a Mandami. But the Republicans all have a different idea. And they all want to be heard and they all want to say their idea in their way, which is great because that's what our founders intended for our country. We all have an opinion and we all have a resource and findings. So we need to discuss this and have open forums. We don't have enough of those discussions to say, wait, I think this argument is the best argument of all 5 arguments. Let's go with this. So working with candidates this year will develop something like that so that the candidates can say, you know what, it is working out. We can all work together and run on a platform where we all agree on the 3 key issues for New York City.
What about the mayor's race for the Republicans?
Curtis Lee was the only Republican running. You have Adams will be on the independent line, as will Jim Walden. And on the conservative line, you have Irene Estrada, who is she's been in the Bronx now forever. She's originally from Texas. Her family comes from Mexico. She's very well established in the community and knows people across all of the boroughs. So it'll be interesting to see how they all work together and how they can debate. I am very interested in seeing how a debate stage plays out because the people deserve to see all of the candidates on a stage having that conversation. The constituents deserve
I
it.
love Curtis Lewa, but at some level, I don't think he's taken very seriously. I think it's a bad use of an opportunity. There should be a real candidate who is, who's like Scott Bessent or Michael Bloomberg or Rudy Giuliani.
Nobody stepped up.
Nobody ever steps up.
Last year, Curtis Lewa said, please, if anyone wants to run a primary against me, let's do it. The people deserve, the constituents deserve to have a conversation between two candidates to see what the issues are and how they would handle each of them.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's the problem with having a broken Republican Party.
Yes.
I just want to interrupt for 1 minute to point out that we have not talked about the fact that Letitia James, our state attorney general, was cited this week for mortgage fraud, for lying about the fact that Virginia is not her primary residence when she applied for a mortgage on a house she was buying in Virginia a couple of years ago, and a bunch of other small other lies, like her father is not her husband.
Yeah, yeah, it's a sticky one because if you've committed mortgage fraud, chances are you've committed wire fraud and mail fraud. So that if I were her, I'd go on the offensive and kind of pull a Donald Trump, take, and then accuse these accusations as being a political hit job. That would be my advice.
Well,
to
she's
her.
already done that.
There you go. Come out with a autobiography, kind of explaining your hard scrabble life, your connections with your family, and turn this attack into something positive.
something like Fannie Willis did down in Georgia.
Exactly right.
Got
It's
it.
a tried and
Playbook.
true
Playbook. Got
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And that's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with more of the back rooms, honest talk about politics. Good night.